We are very excited about today's lunch program. Last summer, the Minnesota Chamber was approached by Kyle Horn from America's Job Honor Awards about hosting an awards program here in Minnesota. America Job Honor Awards is a nonprofit organization celebrating people who overcome barriers to employment and the employers that hire them. After initiating successful programs in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Illinois, we are pleased to present today's the inaugural Minnesota Job Honor Awards. Here to present the awards and to introduce this year's recipients himself is Kyle Horn. Kyle is the founder and director of America's Job Honor Awards and is committed to helping all people achieve their potential in the workforce, including those in disadvantaged circumstances. His mission with these awards is to rekindle hope and energize the work ethic across the nation through the celebration of a new kind of hero. Please join me in welcoming Kyle Horn.
Well, thank you so much, Jill. And it's a real pleasure to be here today with all of you. And we're very excited to be presenting today the inaugural Minnesota Job Honor Awards. And we're very grateful to the Minnesota Chamber for hosting us for this important event. And a special thanks going out to our founding sponsor, Manpower Group. We're going to tell you a little bit more about the awards later on, but I've always found that surely there's no better way of conveying the purpose and the mission of America's Job Honor Awards than by showing our first honoree video. With that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the inaugural Job Honor Awards.
I'm Aaron Corcoran, born in Fridley, Minnesota in June 1982. You know, I realized I was different from a young age, but I don't think about the physical differences. I've had cerebral palsy since birth. It confines me to a wheelchair. And, you know, I have some daily challenges with getting ready for work, up and out the door. But it's not about letting the challenges stop me. It's about knowing you have to outwork those limitations. You just got to outwork them.
I first met Aaron when he took my course at the Hubert Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs. My first day of class, there's this very engaging guy in a wheelchair whose comments were quite thoughtful. I said, well, Aaron, what are you going to do? You graduate this year.
I said, I have no idea. Gave him my resume, didn't think it would go anywhere. And the next week he had Christensen there to talk to me.
There was a guy named Mike Christensen there who's a lifelong friend. And so I put the two of them together.
Christensen said, I've got this idea, got this software that has these real-time jobs. I don't know how it works. So that's going to be your job.
One day I got a call and Aaron said, you know, I have this great new software. Let's go take a look at it, see what we can do. That took the whole workforce picture of the region and demystified it.
Real-Time Talent is the organization that is focused on real-time workforce data. You know, the state of Minnesota uses data and websites that could be anywhere between 4 and 10 years old. And what Real-Time Talent does is goes out and says, what's online right now?
Aaron has the right combination of heart and brain. So he has this intellectual understanding about systems and about policy, and he's able to do the direct service work. So it's a really beautiful combination of both those skill sets, which I think is pretty extraordinary.
I remember going into that group of homeless youth, and the coolest thing to me was watching their eyes light up when they realized, oh, this is the path I have to follow to get to that job. This software, put together with the right amount of policy reshaping and rethinking, can help make us a more efficient state, a more efficient country, and lead to more self-efficient people.
One of the ways in which we can create a stronger workforce is by bringing us all up together. Although we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, we have some of the highest racial and ethnic disparities in the nation. If we are able to provide opportunities for folks in North Minneapolis, in Cedar Riverside, where Aaron is now working, we can all do better.
Most people in this country, with the exception of our Native American sisters and brothers, were immigrants. And I'm really proud that Aaron's helping folks out over at Cedar Riverside.
Finding employment for those who don't have jobs, that's the main important thing. His compassion and his commitment to help them brings those folks back to him again and again.
I was from Somalia originally, and was country of war-torn society. The Somali, why they are here? Because of they have nowhere to go back. Yeah, their goals, I think, become Americans. Very hard because first of all, you don't drive, and you have to go very far places, and you don't know anyone. Then I came to Iran. He was really wonderful. I never see a human being patient like this. We have something similar together, so something feeling deeply inside.
A lot of people only see me as the guy in the chair. But when you can change those attitudes, or when you have people that don't see you as the guy in the chair and don't see the disability as a limitation, that's where I want to work.
Aaron is the kind of person who shows up and is really real right away. So there's not any time wasted, which is beautiful.
Aaron's a great partner, he's a great collaborator, he's a great coworker.
I couldn't be more excited for him, and it's a true story of decency and perseverance.
He's a great asset to this neighborhood, and not only to this neighborhood, but to the state of Minnesota.
The state of Minnesota has been doing things the same way for a long time. What if we could do better?
Ladies and gentlemen, from Minneapolis, Mr. Aaron Corcoran. Thank you so much, Aaron. Truly a remarkable story, and we know the story's only beginning. We look forward to hearing some wonderful reports of accomplishments in the years ahead. Well, that gives you a little taste of what we're all about with America's Job Honor Awards. Once again, I am grateful to the Minnesota Chamber for partnering with us, not only to celebrate these success stories, but also to offer solutions to our state's deepening workforce crisis. You know, employers across the state of Minnesota are increasingly struggling to find qualified employees. Our dwindling workforce is viewed with alarm by Minnesota's business leaders, and with good reason. Let's take a look at the numbers. Our state's unemployment rate is currently 3.8%. That equates to around 115,000 Minnesotans who are unemployed. These job seekers would fit in nearly 2 U.S. bank stadiums. Now, at first glance, that may seem like a lot of people, but on closer inspection, the picture grows more bleak. Many of the people in those stadiums don't possess the skills or qualifications that your company requires. And to be frank, many of these job seekers are only nominally employable. Some have unresolved problems with drug or alcohol addiction, poor social skills, no reliable transportation, or minimal work history. Now, there's no doubt that some of the people in the stadiums are great candidates, individuals who are unemployed through no fault of their own. But as any experienced hiring manager knows, the lower the unemployment rate goes, the higher the percentage of remaining candidates who struggle with barriers to employment. But is this truly our only source of candidates? How do we even define unemployed? Well, to be counted as unemployed, a person must be jobless, looking for a job, and available for work. Now, here's the interesting twist. People who aren't looking for a job are not counted as unemployed. They're simply designated as not in the labor force. So, as we're about to see, the unemployment rate presents a very incomplete picture of our state's jobless citizens. Now, here again is our 115,000 unemployed packed into 2 U.S. bank stadiums. Now, does anyone here care to guess how many adult Minnesotans of working age are neither employed nor actively seeking employment? The answer is more than 1.3 million. That's nearly 20 U.S. bank stadiums compared to the 2 stadiums of unemployed. Now, in fairness, many of these 1.3 million are unemployed for perfectly legitimate reasons. Many are attending school, some are rich, some are retired. Others choose to stay home and care for family members, and some are physically or mentally unable to work. but many of these Minnesotans have simply given up looking for a job. These discouraged would-be job seekers include Minnesotans with disabilities, immigrants and refugees, and veterans struggling to enter the civilian workforce. Many are ex-offenders who, after repeated rejection, simply withdraw from the workforce, dragging their past like a ball and chain. By the way, let's take a look at the national numbers. I find these rather interesting. Here again, we see the three categories I've described. The first column is Americans who are employed. The middle column represents our unemployed. And the column on the far right represents working-age Americans who are not in the labor force and are not looking for work. That's nearly 100 million Americans. And the growth rate is alarming. Since year 2000, our nation's employed have increased by 10%. But in that same time period, Americans not in the labor force have increased by 36%. Some have estimated that non-working Americans will outnumber working Americans by year 2040. Now, by the way, I should point out that Minnesota actually compares quite favorably with the rest of the nation when it comes to our labor force participation rate. As you can see, Minnesota comes in at number 3 nationwide. And in fact, that's 6.6 points above the national average of 62.9%. But we're here today to ask an important question. What about the 31.5%? You know, so often we just kind of breeze right past that number, almost like it's background radiation. It's not to be questioned. But can Minnesota truly prosper with nearly a third of our potential workforce on the sidelines? Now, I'm not naive. I know that some people can't work and some don't want to. But today we're talking about those who can and will. And there are thousands, and you'll meet several of them today. If we can recruit just 1/10 of these 1.3 million Minnesotans into the workforce, we'll double our available supply of workers. Essentially, we'll add a couple of stadiums. And if we were to do so, the impact on our state would be profound. We'd have the benefit of the goods and services these citizens produce from their taxes and purchasing power. We'd enjoy a reduced burden on our public assistance programs. Employers would benefit from a highly committed and productive workforce. And perhaps most importantly of all, more of our fellow Minnesotans will enjoy the freedom and the dignity that comes with participation in the American dream. Now, America's Job Honor Awards does not advocate for the indiscriminate hiring of candidates with red flags. Our premise is simply this: people who have been trained and vetted by a reputable workforce development agency represent no greater risk of turnover than a member of the general public, and indeed probably less, owing to the intense scrutiny and training that they've undergone. Employers across Minnesota are discovering that people who overcome patterns of failure or challenges such as disability often are not only highly qualified employees, but they usually demonstrate remarkable work ethic and loyalty, not despite their struggles, but because of them. I believe the poet Rumi had it right. The wound is the place where the light enters you. And with that, let's celebrate our next honoree.
I would say it was around 2001 when the immigrant population started to move into St. Cloud. Employers really started looking at the immigrant population as people that can help fill the needs in their workforce. I really believe that CentraCare is trying to do what's best for the community.
Outside of Somalia itself, Minneapolis is probably the largest concentration of Somalis in the world, and we believe that St. Cloud is second. And that has been a big change for our community. The CentraCare of today is different from the CentraCare of 20 years ago, and we need our leaders to think differently, recruit differently.
CentraCare is the largest employer north of the metro. St. Cloud, and in fact most American communities, are communities of immigrants. My grandparents immigrated in the late 1800s. That is the story of how America was made. But not only is it about employment, but it's also about improving the health of our communities, because that's really what we're here for.
I'm originally from Sierra Leone, West Africa. We had a civil war that extended for over 10 years. And so during that process, my parents had to get us out of there. And I was granted asylum, and so that's how I was able to stay here. And then I just continued on. living here and going to school and making myself better. Came and interviewed. And what was striking to me was I could see somebody from an African origin that had a job here and was working here and lived in this community. And so that excited me a lot about the company. Gave me a lot of hopes that I could build my life here.
I'm a respiratory therapist. I help people breathe if they're having issues breathing. What I appreciate the most is just the fact that I'm treated as a professional. I have my license and I'm qualified to do the job, and that's all that matters, and that's what they look at.
We know that not only is diversity and inclusion with the community that we serve the right thing to do, it's also a good business decision. The more diverse we become, the stronger we become.
CentraCare as a healthcare organization is looking how it interacts with the community differently. About 25% of health care is related to the healthcare institution, but a good chunk of healthcare is what happens in the community. And so what role does CentraCare need to play?
We have our summer youth employment camp that CentraCare is a great part of. We have 100 youth that come here to CentraCare.
We're identifying opportunities for them to be active participants within CentraCare. We pay them, we have jobs for them to do. So not only are they learning skills, but we're benefiting from their participation in our organization. They do want to be a part of the American dream.
Really what we want to be able to do is live peaceful lives and take care of ourselves and our family. It's going to take some time, I would say a generation, because the kids that are born here or the ones that are growing up here will be a lot like me, and I think I'm doing okay. But it usually, I think, kind of takes a couple of generations before people really become integrated into a society.
I actually have in my office a letter from the 1860s from a Benedictine sister asking to start a hospital because the immigrants to St. Cloud needed to have a healthcare organization from the 1860s. Much like the Germans and the Norwegians and the Lutherans that came here, this is a way for us to continue that journey and pay it forward.
I see the passion that starts at the leadership level with Dr. Holman on down for hiring the immigrant population, for working with youth, for looking for that next generation of the workforce. They are just a real leader in the community.
For a typical immigrant, the United States represents a beacon of hope, a beacon of light.
Definitely hope. Hearing that all the time from friends and family members, especially the ones in the refugee camp, it was literally they lived and breathed it. That's all they thought about. Life will begin when you get to America.
That is something that I think we are very thankful for, is that we are not in this journey alone. We share it with many other people, and we appreciate that.
Ladies and gentlemen, from CentraCare in St. Cloud, we have Craig Broman, President of CentraCare Hospitals, Greg Klugertz, Chief Finance Officer, and Lorraine Griffin-Johnson, Director of Diversity and Inclusion. Congratulations. Well done.
My life growing up was nothing like most people have experienced. Parents divorced and dad was gone, broken home at age 3, and by the time I was 7, I had experienced every kind of abuse. By the time it ended, it resulted in a 10-year prison sentence for my mother's boyfriend. By age 11, I was homeless. I would sleep in the park. I would sleep at people's houses that I really didn't even know. I was actually sleeping in the baseball field in the dugout across the street from the school that I was supposed to be going to. I always felt that I had been cheated. I never got to go to school, and I didn't go to school past 5th grade. I just felt like I could really be somebody if given the chance. Before I even knew what drugs were, I was selling drugs. At age 12, all I knew was I was given balloons, and I would sell them on the street, literally on the corner. So there was crack cocaine, there was cocaine, and there was heroin in these balloons. It didn't matter, nothing mattered. I just kind of spiraled out of control until I landed in prison at 21. I met James Reason in 2008 at Shakopee.
We had a curriculum trainer from Hennepin Technical College, and my job was the soft skills training. I was immediately challenged and interested in her succeeding. All she had to do is take all this feistiness and will to succeed and achieve and track it on the right side of the law. She's got great math skills, and her math skills that could apply to precision manufacturing.
I was sold once they started talking about machining and math. I loved math. After serving 3 years in prison, I enrolled in technical school immediately following my release. I got my first job by the end of my first semester in tech school. I basically walked into a small machine shop and said, I really want to be a machinist. I spoke directly to the owner. He kind of smiled and almost laughed out loud, and he said, I'll tell you what, I'll pay you $11 an hour as long as you don't crash any of my machines. It was the biggest deal in my life up to that point, so I felt awesome and amazing and accomplished just being able to operate a machine.
We love our success stories. Nancy's a really great one. We bring her back in and have her do speeches at our graduations. We want everyone to know that this too could be them if they work hard and stay focused and have a good support group when they get out.
Even back in the correctional facility, she told me about how she wanted to get involved with sending the message back that there's hope beyond where they're at right now.
I had a passion about speaking up for education in the prison system. Education to me was, it was the turning point in my life that gave me an opportunity to experience real change and finally have a life that was worth living. The dean of St. Paul College approached me and he said, have you ever thought about teaching? I was like, well, I'm not the right person for the job. He offered me the position, and it turned out to be a really excellent experience that I wouldn't trade for the world.
They've done their time. Now we want them to be successful. They will be our neighbors. They are maybe a family member or a friend's family member, and we want them to be productive citizens, so we need to give them that second chance.
It still feels unreal. I guess I've still not gotten to a point where I can look at my entire life and accept it as is, but this feels real. Life now feels real. Everything that I went through just feels like a book I read, I guess.
Yes, indeed, a big hand for Nancy Martinez. And unfortunately, Nancy was unable to join us today, so accepting the award on her behalf is her career counselor, Mr. James Reason.
Karen Rehab Caledonia has had a relationship with the Workforce Development Office in Southeast Minnesota for as many years as I can remember. They've always been very interested in partnering and collaborating with us to help with their workforce, but also how do we make the community better.
We have a great school and a football team that can't be beat. I think we have a very caring community. We look out for each other and work together, and this facility is one of the best because we're a family here too. We are a 50-bed long-term care facility, and we have assisted living apartments. We have an adult daycare program. Most of the people that work here grew up in this town, are taking care of the people that they love or have known for a lifetime, and they are the community.
Marion Rauch has just been a very compassionate person. I connected with her right away. Marion just has a gift to see that good in people if they're patient and kind and the kind of people you want taking care of our elderly population.
The elderly accept you for who you are. They just want to be cared for and loved and talked to. This is their home, and we are invited into their home to take care of them.
It's a crisis, it really is, to find people that are going to care for our elderly population.
We had a recent labor market study that said that we could count on about 12 new entrants into the workforce per county in this area per year over the next 10 years. So if that's not a problem, yeah, that's a big one. So a lot of what we do at Workforce Development is really talking to employers and our customers about every available person needs an opportunity. I know nothing about the guy off the street, but this person's coming in and they're sharing, I made some mistakes, here's what I'm gonna do differently, you can count on me to not make that mistake again. Wow, that seems almost like a better bet.
I've had struggles in my past. During the day I had my job, and at night I had the alcohol and the bars and looking for something all the time that I really never did find. The year 2000, I just decided to quit drinking. So I decided to get the help I needed and go on from there. You can't change the past, but you can change the way that you take on today.
As long as I've known them, they've always been open to hiring people with challenges. They'll work with you if you do your job and show up, and they'll give you a chance.
If somebody comes in with a good attitude, no matter what their history was up to that point, it's like, okay, you came in, you look great, you're doing your job great, and so I'm going to reward you with more responsibility.
They certainly do have their expectations of a job applicant. You know, they don't hire just anybody. They know they've been screened. You know, I work very thoroughly with people, getting to know them to see where they would be a good fit.
We try to train and not judge.
To me, it's a great fit. It's a job where you can show a lot of compassion at. Right now, I'm in maintenance, but I'd also like to get my CNA license and be like a fill-in for when they're short.
They're very good at cross-training and seeing that potential in somebody. We've had a few that started as CNAs and they've moved up to LPN and then RN.
I had an RN a few years ago that retired after 42 years of working in this facility. We have a lot of long-term employees, and it's because we've listened to them, helped them through their needy times, and they are here because of that.
You can't always judge what's inside a person. There's people with perfect backgrounds that maybe haven't been caught doing what they're doing. And there may be people with backgrounds that decided to make a major change in their life, and why wouldn't you give them a shot?
Ladies and gentlemen, from Care and Rehab in beautiful Caledonia, Minnesota, the administrator, Marion Raug. Thanks so much. Congratulations. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of this, our inaugural Minnesota Job Honor Awards, and it's been a real pleasure sharing these wonderful stories with you. And we encountered many, many others in the course of combing the state, basically, for fantastic stories of overcoming. And there are a lot of individuals out there whose lives are waiting to be transformed by that initial job. So thanks so much to both of you, Shauna Broderick and Dimitri Athanasakopoulos, and look forward to working with you more in the future. And also deep appreciation to the Minnesota Chamber for deciding to partner with us on this endeavor. Certainly shows where their hearts are, and I appreciate that very much. And also my thanks always to Manpower Group, without whom we wouldn't be here. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.